Welcome to another edition of the Leaderonomics show. Today we have a special guest with us, Simon Treselyan, who is a unique person. I mean, he's done multiple things, was part of the British intelligence at a point in time, and a leadership guru at this point in time. Simon, welcome to Malaysia.
Thank you, Roshan.
What brings you here to Malaysia?
Well, we've been looking at networking some of our unique events and some of our training into the Malaysian business community, as well as Singapore. We do things all over the world, in Australia, United States and the UK. So we thought it was about time that we looked at Southeast Asia and started to produce peak performance there as well.
Fantastic. Tell us a bit about your background, because you have an interesting background.
Fairly unique. Yeah,
fairly diverse too, right?
Well, my background is military special forces. I was 19 years in military special forces. Now, 16 years of that I spent as an undercover intelligence operator. So
you have some good stories on that. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic stories.
Confidential? Or
But during that time, you see, I saw what made people winners and I saw what made people losers. And I saw the recipes that people would adopt to achieve either of those results. I then spent the time as an operational interrogator. And then my last part was actually to debrief victims of torture and refugees. So I got to see what really happens in the world, and sometimes there's a lot of things that go on which are not very nice. But what does come out of that, and I think that the empirical part of what for me was the most important part there, was the way that people rise to the occasion, where they can actually overcome any obstacle placed before them, providing they have the right mindset, providing they can actually be aligned with good leadership, you know, and clear strategies and clear skills. People can actually achieve anything.
And you've achieved quite a bit. I mean, you also do healing. You're a shaman. If you look at your background, you have multiple things, and you seem to be a man of all trades. How do you do that? How do you achieve so much?
I believe that life is holistic. And when we start to look at our life in isolation, we become very limited in both our viewpoint and, of course, in the outcomes that we will achieve. When you have a very much a broader spectrum of interest, a broader spectrum of thought, then you will actually attract more people. You actually open up the level amount of people that can actually come into your state of being. So
it's part of this law of attraction.
Absolutely, and I think everyone understands that. So I decided to look at everything which was enhancing human performance. So I started in martial arts. I realized that martial artists think in a different way.
And you became an expert by the age of 16 or so,
Absolutely.
Right?
I was the youngest black belt in the UK, long time ago. But I realized that martial artists had a mindset that no one else had. And there was that mindset that I took into the military, and I started to work with very elite groups. Now, once I got out of the military, I realized that everyone wanted this type of training. Everyone wanted to have all of the capacity to be the best that they could be, but a lot of people didn't know how to get there. So having great experience of working with the best, and really I suppose I'm very privileged to have led some of the most remarkable people in the most extreme of circumstances to produce extraordinary results. Well, of course, when you're looking at special forces, for instance, I mean the British Army is actually fairly large. We would actually take people from the top 3%. And then we would then train them and select them at an extraordinary level. And sometimes, you know, we would have 100 of the best of the Army, Navy, Air Force and Marines try out. And within 3 months, we were taking like 4 of them. So once you actually select to an extraordinary level, and then with those people, you select them on character, not necessarily the skills that they have. You know? And once you actually get the right people, you can teach them anything. You can take them anywhere and get them to do anything. It all comes down to having the correct, most powerful and most appropriate state. And then once in that state, we will then adopt the correct, most powerful and most appropriate strategy. And within that strategy, we'll then apply the correct, most powerful or most appropriate skills. And it's this recipe of great state, great strategy, great skills leads to great success.
Okay. And this is what you practice in the military?
Absolutely.
Is this
That's
applicable?
what I practice now.
Okay, and is this applicable in the business world?
It's applicable in every world, because the single thing about human beings is that they want to be better. Okay. Now, people want to be better husbands, want to be better partners, better fathers, mothers. It doesn't really matter. Every human being is the one thing I think which separates us from the animals is that animals just get and do what is given to them. It is only human beings that continually strive to be better. You know, we're actually seeing now the Commonwealth Games coming out in India. You know, there will be records that are going to be broken, which we couldn't do 4 years ago. And now you're going to see those records breaking. So human beings, I believe, are remarkable creatures. You know, our brains are, you know, hardly ever used a lot of the time, 7% at best. But we have remarkable resilience. You know, we climb the highest mountains, we swim in the deepest oceans. You know, our species spreads across the whole land, no matter if it's in the Arctic or the Antarctic or in the hottest deserts, and we still manage to thrive and survive. And most of that is because we're adaptable. And even Darwin said it's not the most intelligent or the strongest of species that survives, but the most easily to adapt.
That's right.
So we show people how they can adapt to circumstance. Now, Special Forces had to have that. You know, we could be deployed anywhere at any time against anyone. And therefore, the type of training that I do and the type of mindset that I can bring to people, it goes really across the way. It doesn't matter what business you're in.
So you're saying that the mindset, that whole training that is given to Special Forces can be easily replicated in the business world, and that will enhance businesses.
Yeah. See, the thing is that when you adopt a coach, or when you actually bring on a coach, you want someone that's actually been there and done it.
That's right.
Now, if you're looking for specific people in specific businesses, that pool of excellence is going to be very small. Whereas what I do is actually very, very large, because everyone wants excellence. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be the best? So I've worked a lot in the banking industry, I've worked in direct sales, the real estate industry, really across the board, including sports teams and celebrities as well. Everyone wants that peak performance, because we have a finite life. Everyone you know, everyone you've ever known is going to die at some point. And it's what we do during the time that we actually have that is most important. And that's the one thing that scares me. I mean, I've dealt with courage all of my life and actually adapted to some pretty fearful things. But the one thing that I suppose that scares me above all is not achieving my potential. And I think that should scare everybody, personally, because we have the techniques, we have the strategies. There are people with clear and defined skills that can help anyone at any time to achieve anything. All you got to do is ask.
You know, I mean, one of the big parts of military is leadership, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What's your take? What's your definition of leadership?
Well, I believe there's a massive difference between managers and leaders. I have found in my experience that managers try to keep the status quo. All they're trying to do is just keep their jobs, keep everything to the minimum standard so they keep their job and don't lose it. And of course everyone else then adopts the same principles. So it's actually a level of mediocrity. Whereas leadership is very, very different. Leaders have vision. Leaders actually utilize all the resources that they have. They inspire people to take action. They actually cede away some of their responsibility to others so that those others may draw upon that and take that on themselves. We used to always say that one volunteer is worth 10 pressed men. And when you have those volunteers that are actually embracing that new responsibility and are accountable in all of their actions, that's a very, very powerful team. And leadership is not hard. It shouldn't be hard. If you've selected the right people for the right reasons, then leadership is actually a very, very easy process.
So yes, it is.
And I guess in the military you teach that, right? Teach leadership.
Yeah, and it's interesting. See, from the military, we would have structures and strategies like most people do. Right. But from special forces, it's very different. See, leadership in the military, you have delegational leadership, which is done by rank. So according to what rank is on your shoulders, people just do things, usually out of fear. And I've found some leaders, actually people follow them at more of a morbid sense of curiosity rather than anything else. I believe that leadership is an appointment, not necessarily a rank. And leadership should be gifted to the person that has the most grasp on the situation in that moment, and is not necessarily based upon rank.
Okay, so leadership can be shared.
Yes, absolutely. According to what is necessary in that moment. See, this is where special forces were very different, because everything was mission focused. Okay. The mission was above all, yes. And everything that you did was to get to that mission outcome. So you would go through the pain barrier, you'd go through uncomfortableness, you'd go through everything to attain that mission. And if everyone thought in that way, and that's the same.
It's the same with companies, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a company mission or a company goal,
exactly,
but
right.
yet we are so siloed and people think differently. Why is that so different in the company? And why is it so? I mean, it's the same thing, but yet it seems to be practiced very differently.
Yes, it does. And a lot of times, see, with a company, again, a lot of people just go to minimum standards. So there's sometimes very little innovation. What you need, I believe, is leaders that have true vision. Now, these are the people like the Richard Bransons of life, the Bill Gateses of life. That, you know, they're not necessarily intellectual leaders. You know, most of them wouldn't actually have the same business skills or even business experience as a lot of people earning a lot less than them. But what they do have is that they have a charismatic leadership that people embrace, and they go, you know what, wherever you're going, I want to follow you. And this is why people like Richard Branson can open up anything, really, and people go, I'm there with you. No matter what you do, I'm there. And it's that I try to get across to people. It's that charismatic, transformational leadership, as opposed to the old style of 80s delegational leadership, where you have a strong leader that gets his team and it's my way or the highway. You know, people don't like that. People don't actually perform well in that area.
Fantastic. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with Simon Treselyan in a bit.